Hey guys, tonight we are going to build something impossible. You're standing on the warm volcanic soil of an island in the middle of the vast Pacific. The sun, a brilliant molten gold, is just beginning to dip towards the horizon, and its light catches on something you can't quite see. A glimmer that seems to exist only in your mind's eye. It's the color of sacred blood, the flash of liquid gold. You're about to be tasked with capturing that light, that color, that very essence of divinity, and weaving it into a cloak for a king. The process will demand the patience of a saint, the skill of a master, and the lifespan of a small dynasty. You probably won't survive this podcast episode, let alone the actual project. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're re-listening from and what time it is for you down in the comments. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The hum of the fan melts away, replaced by the gentle, rhythmic push and pull of the ocean against the shore. It's a sound that has accompanied every moment of your life, the deep breathing of the world. You sit on a finely woven lauhala mat, the fibers cool and smooth against your skin. The air in your village of Napoopoo is thick with the scent of salt, sweet taro cooking in an underground oven, and the slightly acrid smell of smoke from countless small fires. In the distance, the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of a kapa maker beating mulberry bark into cloth is a familiar, comforting heartbeat. This is your world, a place of profound connection between the land, the sea, the gods, and your people, the Kanaka Maoli. You are not a chief, an ali. You do not claim direct descent from the Sky Father, Wakia, but you have your own kind of lineage. Your hands know the language of fibers. Your grandmother taught you how to twist the stubborn bark of the olonā shrub into cordage so fine it was nearly invisible, yet strong enough to moor a canoe. Your father taught you the precise knots that could hold a house together in a storm. You are an artisan, a weaver, a creator, and for the last few sleeps, your dreams have been filled with color. Not the soft greens of the forest or the deep blues of the ocean, but startling, impossible colors. A crimson so vibrant it seems to vibrate, and a yellow so pure it feels like staring into the sun. These are not just colors. You know this in your bones. They are manifestations of mana, of sacred spiritual power. It's the same power you feel when the High Chief, the Ali'i Nui, passes by. An almost physical pressure. A sense that you are in the presence of something ancient and formidable. This mana flows from the gods, through the highest-ranking chiefs, and imbues the land with its life force. An ali'i with great mana brings prosperity. The taro grows thick and healthy, the fish are plentiful in the bays, and the people are strong. A chief who loses his mana brings famine and strife, and so everything is done to protect and enhance this power. It must be displayed, made visible, worn like a second skin. It's the original blue check of verification, but with slightly more divine authority. And that is what your dreams are telling you. A new skin is needed, a vessel for the chief's mana, an ʻahu ʻula, a royal cloak made entirely of feathers. This is not a new idea, of course. For generations, the ali'i have worn feather capes and cloaks as symbols of their rank and power. These garments are among the most sacred and valuable treasures a person can possess. A well-made cloak, dense with the feathers of thousands of birds, isn't just for show. It is said that some are so masterfully constructed they could deflect a sling stone or a wooden spear in battle, turning aside weapons with the soft, dense ripple of their surface. A nice little perk when you're the most important person on the battlefield. You've seen smaller capes, stunning creations of red and yellow, worn by lesser chiefs. But the vision in your mind is something else entirely. It is vast, a sweeping cascade of crimson that falls from the shoulders to the ground, bordered and patterned with sun-bright yellow, a garment that would require a truly staggering number of feathers, a number you can't even begin to compute. The thought is both thrilling and terrifying. A project of this scale isn't the work of a single person or even a single generation. It is a vow made by an entire community. It would require the most skilled birdcatchers, the kiamanyu, to venture into the deepest, most sacred parts of the mountain forests. It would require dozens of helpers to sort and prepare the feathers. And it would require a master weaver to spend year after year, knot after knot, tying the tiny feather bundles to a fine net backing. It is a life's work. More than a life's work. You look at your hands. They are capable, strong. But are they capable of this? Of creating a garment that is not a garment, but a prayer? A physical link between the divine and the mortal? Historians still argue whether the primary function of an ʻahu ʻula was for spiritual protection in battle or as a political symbol during peacetime ceremonies. But as you sit here with the vision of crimson and gold still burning behind your eyes, you know the answer is both, and more. It is a history, a genealogy, a shield, and a declaration all in one. It is a story told in feathers, and for some reason, the gods have decided that you are the one who must begin to tell it. The weight of it settles on you, heavier than any cloak could ever be. It's a bit much for a Tuesday evening, isn't it? But you can't shake the feeling, the absolute certainty that this is your purpose, your kuleana, your sacred responsibility. The decision feels less like a choice and more like a current pulling you into the depths. You have barely had time to process this new, profound sense of purpose when the summons arrives. It doesn't come as a gentle request. Two of the chief's retainers, their bodies broad and covered in the sharp geometric lines of the cacao tattoo, appear at the edge of your family's living space. They don't speak your name. They don't need to. They simply say, "The ali'i nui will see you." It's the kind of message that doesn't exactly come with an RSVP, if you feel like it option. Your family, who had been going about their evening tasks, falls silent. The air grows still and heavy. This is not a casual visit. You rise, your legs feeling strangely distant, and follow them. The walk to the chief's personal compound, his cow hail, is not a long one, but it feels like crossing into another world. You move from the familiar, bustling paths of the common villagers, the maka'ainana, into a space that is deliberately quiet, ordered, and intimidating. The very ground feels different, more sacred. People see you walking with the chief's men and avert their eyes, giving you a wide berth. They know you are being drawn into the orbit of great power, a place where both immense honor and immense danger reside. Archaeologists and cultural historians continue to debate the exact nature of the relationship between the ali'i and the maka'ainana. Was it a benevolent system of mutual obligation, or was it a rigid hierarchy of divine right and absolute power? From where you're walking, it feels like a potent mix of both. You feel not fear, but a profound sense of duty, a feeling that your specific skills are now being called upon to serve the whole. The chief's compound is enclosed by a meticulously constructed wooden palisade. The main dwelling is a masterpiece of architecture, its thatched roof thicker and more perfectly shaped than any other. Carved wooden images stand guard at the entrance, their stylized faces and powerful stances representing the ancestors who watch over this line of chiefs. The air here is different, quieter. You can almost feel that mana we talked about, the same energy you felt in your dream, but now it's concentrated, humming like a low chant you can't quite hear. The guards at the entrance carry long spears tipped with polished stone and shark teeth. They look through you, their faces impassive. You are an insect to them, significant only because their master has summoned you. You are led into the main house. It's dark inside, the only light coming from the low doorway and a few glowing kukui nut lamps that cast flickering shadows on the walls. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust, and then you see him. The ali'i nui is seated on a pile of fine mats, his back straight, his presence filling the space. He is a huge man, as the highest chiefs often are. A lifetime of access to the best and most plentiful food, pork, dog, the largest fish, has made him physically imposing. He's been eating well. No fad diets in the chief's compound, that's for sure. He wears a simple loincloth, a malo, but around his neck hangs a lei niho palawa, a whale-tooth pendant suspended from a thick braid of human hair. It is one of the most powerful symbols of chiefly status. Its smooth, curved surface seems to gather what little light there is and hold it. He watches you approach, his eyes dark and intelligent. You perform the kapu mo, the full prostration required in the presence of such a sacred individual. Touching your forehead to the ground, You remain there, silent, your world reduced to the smell of the woven mats and the cool earth beneath them. After a long moment, a voice like rocks grinding together says, "Rise." You get to your knees, keeping your head bowed. "The gods have been speaking," the chief says. "It is not a question. They have shown me a mantle of red, a color to honor Ku, our great god of war and prosperity. And in this mantle, they have shown me lines of yellow, the color of royalty, the color of the divine. They will trace the story of my ancestors, my mo'o, so that all who see it will know from whom I descend." He is describing your dream, your vision. He speaks of a coming conflict with a rival chief, a challenge that will require not just strength of arms, but a profound display of divine favor. He needs a vessel for that favor. He needs the ʻahu ʻula. He looks directly at you and his gaze is heavy. The kahuna have confirmed the visions. They have named your family. They say your hands know how to speak the language of the gods. He pauses, letting the weight of his words settle in the silent air. You will oversee this work. You will gather what is needed. You will create this mantle. It will be my shield. It will be the banner of my reign. The historical record is clear on one thing. The alii class was a hereditary institution, with lineage traced directly back to the gods, granting them the divine right to rule. What you are being asked to create is a physical manifestation of that right, a woven genealogy. There is nothing to say but "e kalani." Yes, my chief. The words feel small in the vast, quiet space. He gives a slight nod and you know you are dismissed. You back out of his presence, never turning away from him, your body moving with a careful reverence you did not know you possessed. As you step back out into the bright late afternoon sun, the world seems both sharper and less real. The dream is no longer a dream. The vision has become a command, a sacred commission. No pressure, of course. Just create a timeless, generation-spanning masterpiece that pleases the gods, protects the king, and secures the future of the entire kingdom. Your weekend is now officially booked. The weight of it all is immense, but underneath it, a spark of fierce creative pride begins to glow. The path is now clear. The first step is no longer a mystery. You need a team, the best team. You walk back through the village, but the familiar sights and sounds now seem different, filtered through the lens of your new responsibility. The thump-thump of the kappa beater is no longer just a background rhythm. It's a reminder of the patient, repetitive work that lies ahead. The flight of a small red bird darting into the canopy of a breadfruit tree makes your heart skip a beat. Everything has become a resource, a challenge, a piece of a puzzle so vast you can't yet see the edges. The chief's command echoes in your mind. You will gather what is needed. He made it sound so simple, as if you could just pop down to the local market for a few 100,000 divine feathers. You know better. This isn't a task for one person. This is a task for a fellowship. You're basically putting together the A-team for an arts and crafts project of epic proportions. The van will be a canoe, and instead of gold chains, your key players will be covered in sacred tattoos. Your first step is not towards the mountains, but towards an unassuming hail near the edge of the village. You need a spiritual architect, someone to ensure this entire endeavor is built on a foundation of sacred protocol. You need a kahuna. The term kahuna is broad, covering everything from a master canoe builder to a high priest who speaks directly with the gods. Anthropologists still debate the precise hierarchy and distinctions among the various classes of kahuna, but you know that you don't need just any priest. You need a specialist, a kahuna haku ohe, an expert whose knowledge encompasses the rituals of weaving, the chants for gathering materials, and the prayers that will protect the project from malevolent spirits and imbue it with mana. The man you seek is old, his skin wrinkled like a dried leaf. He is sitting outside his home, polishing a smooth stone, and he doesn't look up as you approach. He already knows why you are here. News travels fast when it comes from the chief's compound. You explain the commission, your voice low and respectful. He listens without moving, his eyes closed. When you finish, he is silent for a long time. Then he opens his eyes and they are startlingly clear. "A cloak of this magnitude has not been attempted in my lifetime," he says, his voice a dry rustle. It will anger the forest gods if we are not careful. It will fail if the proper tributes are not made. Every step, from the first fiber twisted to the last feather tied, must be a prayer. He has a habit of speaking in riddles and grave warnings, which is great for his whole wise old mystic brand, but not super helpful when you're trying to nail down a project timeline. Still, he agrees. The project is worthy. The spiritual foundation is now secure. Next, you need the hunters, the warriors of this campaign, the kiamanu, the bird catchers. This is a hereditary skill, passed down through select families for generations. In a society where everyone has a specialized role, theirs is one of the most respected and mysterious. They spend more time in the misty, sacred forests of the high mountains than they do in the village. They know the secret paths, the language of the bird calls, the exact flowering season of the ohia tree that the red iiwi love so much. You can't just post a job opening on a coconut. Recruiting for a sacred multi-generational project requires a bit more finesse than offering a competitive benefits package. You seek out the leader of the local guild of catchers, a man named Kalo. He is lean and quiet, with the patient eyes of a predator. His hands are thick with calluses from climbing trees and handling rough cordage, but his movements are surprisingly graceful. You find him not in a house, but in a small, open-sided shelter, where he is meticulously crafting a new net. You tell him of the chief's vision, of the scale of the cloak. He doesn't seem impressed. He has provided feathers for the chief before, for smaller capes, for helmet coverings. He simply nods and keeps working. "This will be different, Kylo," you say, pressing on. "We will need more yellow feathers than have ever been gathered. More red than can be counted." He finally stops his work and looks at you. "The birds are not a harvest like taro," he says, his voice soft but firm. "They are a gift from the gods of the forest. We take only what we need. We take only what is offered." He believes, as all good kiamanu do, in a sacred balance. They have their own patron deity, Kuhuluhulumanu, a god of birds and feathers, and to offend him is to risk ruin. Taking too many feathers or harming the birds unnecessarily could result in the birds disappearing forever. You assure him that the kahuna will sanctify the work, that the chief himself will make offerings to the forest gods. You speak not of harvesting, but of borrowing. You are asking to borrow the bird's divine beauty for a sacred purpose. After a long, thoughtful silence, he agrees. The honor of the task and the assurance of its spiritual correctness is enough. He will gather his most trusted men. Finally, you gather your own team, your younger cousins, your niece who has nimble fingers and a patient soul. They are the engine of this operation. They will be the ones twisting the miles of cordage needed for the netting, the ones who will spend countless hours sorting the feathers that Kalo and his men bring down from the mountains. This too is how your society works. Skills are passed down through the ohana, the extended family. Your knowledge is not your own. It belongs to your lineage, and it is your duty to pass it on. As the sun sets, your team is assembled. The wise kahuna, the quiet master bird catcher, and your own small guild of weavers. The 5 of you stand together, a small, determined knot of specialists, and you all look up towards the dark, looming silhouette of the volcano, Mauna Loa. The forests that cloak its slopes hold the winged jewels you need. The journey has not yet begun, but the path is now visible. The impossible task has been broken down into its human parts, a prayer, a hunt, and a weave. Before a single bird is caught, before a single thread is twisted, you must create the map, the architectural blueprint for this monument of feathers. This isn't a process you undertake alone. In the quiet coolness of the early morning, you gather with the old kahuna and Kaelo, the master bird catcher. The chief himself is not present, but his directives were clear. A cloak that tells the story of his divine lineage. This is the most stressful graphic design meeting in history. Your client is a divine king, your spiritual consultant is a priest who speaks in omens, and your materials expert is a man who communes with the forest. A misinterpretation of the brief could have consequences far beyond a simple project delay. You don't have drafting tables or fine paper. Your canvas is a massive, pale sheet of kappa, bark cloth beaten to a smooth, felt-like consistency. Your drawing tool is a stick of charcoal from a cooled fire. The 3 of you kneel around the kappa. the silence broken only by the distant surf and the scratching of the charcoal against the cloth. This is where the spiritual vision begins its long journey into the physical world. The kahuna is the first to speak, his voice a low chant as he outlines the sacred geometry. He explains that the cloak itself is a body, a representation of the chief. The top, the part that will curve around the neck and shoulders, is the most sacred space. This area must be filled with golden yellow crescents, hawaka, to represent the divine. You take the charcoal and begin to sketch, your hand steady. The crescent shape is powerful, echoing the moon, a symbol of the god's presence. Beneath this divine collar, the main body of the cloak will be a field of vibrant crimson, the color of Ku, the god of war, politics, and power. This crimson field will be the canvas for the story of the chief's ancestry. Here you begin to draw the bold triangles. In your language, they are called niho mano, shark teeth. A shark is a powerful aumakua, an ancestral spirit, a creature of immense strength and ferocity. A pattern of triangles declares the wearer to be a predator, a warrior of the highest order. The chief's primary lineage, his direct paternal line, will be represented by a large central column of interlocking triangles. You draw this first, a spine of power running down the center of the cloak. Branching off from this central column, you sketch smaller, secondary patterns, other arrangements of triangles and bold rectangles. These represent other powerful lines of ancestry that have fed into his own. A great-grandmother from a neighboring island, a legendary warrior chief from 5 generations back. Each geometric shape is a name, a story, a tributary of mana flowing into the singular entity of your current ʻahu nui. It is a visual genealogy, a wearable family tree where every branch signifies power and divine connection. This visual language was everywhere in your culture, from the tattoos on a warrior's skin to the petroglyphs carved into lava rock. The patterns were a shared vocabulary of power. As you draw, a complex question arises. The kahuna points to a space on the design. A rival chief, whom your ʻahu nui is preparing to challenge, shares a distant ancestor. Do you include the symbol for that shared lineage? To do so would be to acknowledge your enemy's claim to legitimacy. To omit it would be a powerful political statement, an insult written in the language of the gods. Scholars and art historians continue to debate the precise meanings of certain geometric motifs, as much of this symbolic language was lost after the traditional kapu system was abolished in 1819. But in this moment, the meaning is alive and dangerously potent. After a heavy silence, the kahuna advises omitting the symbol. The cloak is not just a record of the past, it is a tool to shape the future. It must project an image of singular, unassailable authority. You carefully erase the charcoal line with a piece of rough coral. You double-check every connection, every angle. There is no undo button when your canvas is a project that will take 50 years and 500,000 feathers to complete. Some of the patterns you are drawing are not just symbols of rank, but are themselves kapu. They are the exclusive property of the chief's lineage. To weave this specific combination of triangles and crescents onto any other garment would be a spiritual crime, a theft of ancestral power punishable by death. Think of it as the most aggressive intellectual property law imaginable. You wouldn't dare use the chief's signature triangle pattern unless you had a sudden, overwhelming desire to see what the afterlife was like. Finally, Kalo speaks. His concerns are not of genealogy or politics, but of practicality. He traces the vast fields of yellow on the design with a calloused finger. "This much yellow," he says softly, his eyes full of a quiet gravity, "has never been gathered before. The mamo bird. Its feathers are the color of the sun, but it is shy, rare. To find enough for even one of these crescents will take a full season in the high forest." He is not saying it's impossible. He is simply stating the true cost of the design, measured not in currency, but in time, effort, and the favor of the forest. The design is finalized by midday. The kapa cloth lies before you, a ghost of the cloak that is to be. It is covered in a beautiful but severe web of black lines, a map of mana. Now, for the first time, you can truly comprehend the scale of the task. You can see, in the stark geometry, the sheer volume of feathers required. Hundreds of thousands of red feathers from the ʻihiwi. Tens of thousands of precious yellow feathers from the ʻo and the impossibly rare mamo. A handful of black feathers for definition. The dream has now become a schematic, and the schematic has become a terrifying inventory. You roll up the kappa blueprint with reverent hands. It is now one of the most important documents in the kingdom. The map is drawn. Now, you must find the treasure. With the sacred blueprint rolled and carefully stored, your work shifts from the abstract to the intensely practical. You unroll the kappa map again, this time with Kalo as your guide. The charcoal lines and geometric shapes are your domain, but the living colors they represent belong to his world. He crouches, his finger hovering over the vast crimson field that makes up the cloak's body. For this, he says, his voice low and steady, we will need the ʻiwi. He describes the bird, and as he speaks you can almost see it. A small, restless jewel of a creature, no bigger than your fist. Its body is a shocking, brilliant scarlet, a red so pure it seems to burn. Its wings and tail are a stark, glossy black, and its long, curved bill is the delicate pink of a sunrise. It lives high in the mountains, in the cool, misty forests where the ohialehua trees bloom with fiery red blossoms. The ʻiwi, he explains, is a honey creeper, using its specialized bill to drink the nectar deep within the flowers. He purses his lips and makes a sound, a high, squeaky call like two branches rubbing together in the wind, the bird's namesake call. Kailo's explanation makes it clear you'll need feathers from roughly a bazillion ʻiwi. It's the kind of number that makes your brain feel fuzzy, like trying to count grains of sand. But he seems unconcerned. The ʻiwi are relatively numerous, a flashing red tide that follows the flowering of the trees across the mountain slopes. They will be the foundation, the lifeblood of the cloak. Next, his finger moves to the yellow patterns, the triangles and rectangles that represent the chief's lineage. Here, he says, his tone shifting, becoming more serious. The work becomes more difficult. He speaks of the ʻo. This bird is not a vibrant splash of color like the ʻiwi. Instead, it is a sleek, handsome creature cloaked in glossy black feathers with a sharp, slightly curved black bill. It is larger, more stately. Its gift, its treasure, is hidden. The ʻo, Kalo explains, wears its gold in secret. Under each wing, it has a small, fluffy tuft of brilliant yellow feathers. A few more grow from its tail. That's it. To gather the yellow for just one of the smaller triangles on your map, dozens of ʻo must be caught. So to get the most valuable color, you have to find a mostly black bird that has a few bright yellow feathers tucked away, basically in its armpits. It's the definition of playing on hard mode. Finally, Kaloet's finger rests on the most sacred part of the design, the golden crescents that will form the collar. He falls silent for a moment, and the air around you seems to grow still. For the parts that touch the neck of the ali nui, he whispers, only the mamo will do. The mamo. Even its name is spoken with reverence. It is another honey creeper, mostly a soft, sooty black. But the feathers on its rump and upper legs are a yellow so deep, so rich it makes the ʻo's feathers look pale by comparison. It is the color of the setting sun captured in a fiber. But the mamo is a ghost, a legend. Ornithologists and historians debate the exact population sizes of these birds in pre-contact Hawaii. Were they always exceptionally rare, or did the feather trade push a once healthy population to the brink? Kalo speaks of them as if they are spirits of the forest, shy, intelligent, and seen only by those who are truly worthy. The mamo is so rare, seeing one is like spotting a unicorn, a very small, very shy feathered unicorn that you then have to politely ask for its most valuable feathers. To create the collar as designed will require hundreds, maybe thousands, of these precious saffron feathers. It is the work of a lifetime. As he speaks, you realize the depth of his knowledge. He doesn't just know the birds, he knows their songs, their habits, their families. He can hear a single wing beat and tell you what is passing overhead. A master kia manu like Kalo possessed an astonishing auditory library, able to identify and even perfectly mimic the calls of dozens of birds, a chirp to lure one closer, a cry of alarm to make another reveal its location. This knowledge was his inheritance, more valuable than any plot of land. Listening to him, you feel a deep reverence for these creatures. They are not simply a resource to be harvested. They are the living embodiment of the island's beauty and sacredness. Each bird is a tiny vessel of the gods' creative power, and your task is to borrow that power, feather by tiny feather. It is a sad historical irony that the very birds that made these cloaks possible, the symbols of eternal power, would not themselves prove to be eternal. The Hawaii ʻahu, which Kylo described with such familiarity, was declared extinct in 1987. The mamo, the ultimate prize, vanished even earlier, last seen for certain in 1898. The vibrant iwi still flits through the forests, but it too is threatened, its cheerful call a fragile echo of what once was. But you don't know this. In your time, the birds are still there, a challenge to be met, a gift to be earned. The meeting ends. The charcoal map is no longer just a collection of shapes, it is a flock of birds. You can see the flash of scarlet, the glint of hidden gold, the impossible dream of the mamo's sun-bright rump. You can hear their calls in your mind, a complex symphony that will soon become the soundtrack to your life's greatest work. The design is done. The winged jewels have been identified. Now, the hunt must begin. The time for planning is over. The journey must begin. You and Kylo's team of Kia Manu prepare for the expedition into the high forests, a journey that could last for weeks, even months. You pack light, but with purpose. Dried fish and octopus, wrapped carefully in tie leaves. Hard pounded taro called paiai, a dense, long-lasting source of energy that can be mixed with water to make poi. You have gourds filled with fresh water, sleeping mats woven from lauhala, and extra cordage. You're packing for what feels like a multi-year camping trip where the main goal is to bother some very small, very colorful birds. You make a mental note to pack extra snacks. Before you depart, the old kahuna gathers your small group. He anoints each of you with salt water, chanting a long, low prayer to Laka, the goddess of the forest, asking for her permission to enter her sacred domain and her grace in guiding your path. You leave the familiar sounds and smells of the coast behind. Your path takes you up the sloping flank of the great volcano Mauna Loa. You are traveling Mauka, towards the mountains, moving through the different ecological zones of your ʻahu. This is the traditional Hawaiian system of land division, a wedge of land that stretches from the ocean deeps to the mountain summit, ensuring that each community has access to every resource the island has to offer. You are simply walking from one end of your home to the other, yet it feels like a journey to a different country. The first part of the trek is through the dry lands. The sun beats down, and you walk across vast, jagged fields of old lava, the rock a stark black against the brilliant blue sky. The heat radiates upwards and the air shimmers. Here and there, a hardy, silver-leafed plant pushes its way through a crack in the rock, a testament to life's tenacity. After a day of walking, the landscape begins to change. The air grows cooler, fresher. You enter a forest of koa and sandalwood trees, their canopy providing welcome shade. The ground softens underfoot, becoming a rich, dark soil instead of sharp rock. By the end of the second day, you have entered another world entirely. This is the verdant labyrinth, the high-elevation rainforest where the birds live. Everything is wet. A fine, persistent mist, a ʻue noe, drifts through the trees, clinging to your skin and hair and dampening every surface. Giant hapū, tree ferns, unfurl their fronds high above your head, creating a secondary canopy beneath the towering ohia trees. The ground is a delightful combination of slick moss, sharp lava rock, and hidden holes. It's nature's very own obstacle course, and the prize for failing is a twisted ankle and eternal embarrassment. There are no trails here. This is a wilderness that is not meant for casual travel or settlement. Historians and archaeologists debate the extent to which the deep upland forests were permanently inhabited versus being used for temporary resource gathering. But you know in your bones this is not a place for homes. It is a place of spirits, a place you visit with purpose and leave with gratitude. Kylo moves through this chaotic landscape with an unnerving grace. He is your guide, navigating not by landmarks, which are hidden by the mist and dense foliage, but by a deeper understanding of the land. He reads the angle of the slope, the direction of the wind, the type of moss growing on a tree trunk. He is as much a part of this forest as the trees themselves. You and the others follow in his footsteps, your movements clumsy by comparison, the snapping of a twig under your foot sounding like a thunderclap in the deep, damp silence. You make your first camp as dusk begins to fall, not by the setting of the sun, which is invisible through the thick canopy, but by a subtle change in the quality of the light. You find a small clearing, a space protected by the roots of a giant koa tree. A small smokeless fire is made, and you eat your simple meal of dried fish and taro paste. As darkness settles, the forest comes alive with a new chorus of sounds. The chirps and calls of night birds you don't recognize, the rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth, the incessant, rhythmic drip of water from leaf to leaf. The forest at night sounds like a recording of experimental alien jazz. Every chirp, croak, and rustle is a reminder that you are very much not at the top of the food chain here. You feel a profound sense of isolation, a small, warm-blooded creature in an immense, ancient, and utterly indifferent world. The kahuna's blessing feels very important right now. You lie back on your mat, pulling a covering of oiled kapa over you to ward off the damp chill. Staring up into the blackness of the canopy, you think of the birds. You are in their home now. You are the intruder. You have walked through the door into their world, and tomorrow you will begin the delicate work of asking for their treasure. The first light of dawn filters down through the dense canopy, not as a bright sunbeam, but as a soft, gray, pearlescent glow that slowly illuminates the misty undergrowth. The forest is waking up, and its morning chorus is a complex symphony of chirps, whistles, and calls that echo through the damp air. But your work does not begin with the hunt. It begins with the creation of the tools for the hunt. This is the ultimate DIY project. There's no pre-packaged kit, no instruction manual. If you need something, you must find it and fashion it with your own hands, using knowledge passed down through generations. Kylo leads this process, his movements economical and precise. He is the master craftsman of this wilderness workshop. His first task is to find the perfect ʻahu, or pole. He walks through the surrounding forest, not looking up at the canopy, but at the trunks and branches of the younger trees. He is searching for a sapling of ʻaia or koaie, woods known for being exceptionally lightweight yet strong and flexible. He inspects a dozen before he finds the one he wants. A sapling that is almost perfectly straight, about 10 feet long and no thicker than his wrist. Using a sharp-edged stone adze a koe, he carefully cuts it at the base. The ancient Hawaiians, lacking metal, became absolute masters of stonework. Their adzes, made from dense basalt, could be honed to an edge sharp enough to carve the hull of a massive voyaging canoe, or in this case, to fell a small tree with a few clean strokes. Back in the clearing, the patient work of finishing the pole begins. Kylo and his men use smaller flakes of stone and rough pieces of coral to scrape away the bark and smooth down every knot and imperfection until the wood is pale and satiny to the touch. The pole must be perfectly balanced, an extension of the catcher's own arm. While they work on the poles, you are given a different task. You are to prepare the kapau, the bird lime. This is the secret weapon of the Keamanu. Kylo points you to a specific tree, the papala kapau. Its bark is covered in small, sticky, translucent fruits. Your job is to gather a gourd full of them. You then watch as one of the younger catchers shows you the process. He takes a handful of the fruits and begins to chew them. Yes, chew them. He works them over in his mouth, his cheeks bulging, until the fruits break down into a thick, incredibly sticky, pale goo. He then spits the concoction into a gourd bowl. It's a strange, intimate process, transforming something from the forest into a tool through the most direct means possible. The resulting substance looks suspiciously like that gum you once got stuck in your hair as a kid. It's incredibly effective, but you make a mental note not to get it on anything you own, ever. This versatile goo wasn't just for catching birds. It could also seal cracks in a water gourd or serve as a powerful, all-purpose forest glue. While the main method of capture would be the sticky pole, you notice Kylo also has a small, finely woven net, made of the impossibly strong olonā fiber. This, he explains, is for specific situations, a narrow flyway between two trees perhaps. But the pole is the tool of choice. It is quiet, precise, and reusable. You might be wondering about other hunting methods. There is some debate among cultural historians about the use of the bow and arrow in ancient Hawaii. While they existed, they were primarily used for a sport that involved shooting rats, which sounds like a fantastic way to spend an afternoon. They were not, however, used for hunting birds. The preference was for these more subtle, less violent methods. The plan is not to shoot the birds from a distance, but to get so close, to be so unobtrusive, that you can simply reach out and gently pluck them from a branch with a very, very sticky stick. It is a philosophy of guile over force. By mid-morning, the tools are ready. Several long, pale poles lie gleaming in the soft light, their tips now smeared with the tacky, translucent kapau. Small decoys have been fashioned from twigs and leaves, with a single bright feather attached to each to catch the eye. Kalo stands and tests the weight of his pole, whipping it through the air. It makes no sound. It is a silent, graceful instrument of capture. He looks at you and his team and with a slight nod indicates that the time for preparation is over. The forest has reached its full daytime volume now. The air is thick with the scent of wet earth, decaying leaves, and the sweet perfume of unseen blossoms. You can hear the high, squeaky calls of the iiwi somewhere in the canopy above. They are close. You feel a knot of anticipation tighten in your stomach. You are no longer just a weaver, an artisan from the coast. Here in the deep forest, you are part of a hunting party, armed with tools you have made with your own hands from the living wood and fruit around you. The real work is about to begin. You follow Kalo deeper into the forest, moving with a slowness that feels unnatural at first. Every footstep is deliberate, placed gently on the mossy ground to avoid the snap of a twig or the crunch of a dry leaf. You are learning to walk like a ghost. This process requires a level of patience that makes watching paint dry look like an extreme sport. You have to be so still, for so long, that you begin to feel less like a person and more like another moss-covered stone, a part of the landscape. You are learning the first and most important rule of the Kia Manu. The forest rewards stillness. Kalo is not just walking, he is listening, watching, and smelling. He leads you to a clearing on a ridge where a magnificent ohia lehua tree stands, its branches ablaze with hundreds of brilliant red, pom-pom-like blossoms. This is not a random choice. This tree is a nexus of activity, a vibrant hub of the forest's ecosystem. The iiwi and other honey creepers have co-evolved with these native trees for millennia. The bird's long, curved bill is perfectly shaped to probe the flower for its rich nectar, and as it feeds, its head gets dusted with pollen, which it then carries to the next blossom, ensuring the tree's survival. It is a beautiful, self-sustaining partnership. For the birds, this tree is the best restaurant in town, and Kalo has just led you to its front door. Here, your group melts into the undergrowth, finding places of concealment behind giant ferns and mossy lava rocks. You do not speak. All communication is done through subtle hand gestures. You settle into your position, the damp earth cool beneath you, and you wait. The silence stretches. Then, Kalo begins his work. He purses his lips, and a perfect, high-pitched E-E-V call cuts through the air. He is speaking the language of the iiwi. He repeats the call, then follows it with a more complex series of chirps and whistles. Kalo's bird impressions are so good you're half convinced he could order a meal in fluent iiwi. He's basically a feathered dialect coach. Slowly, the birds respond. A flash of scarlet darts through the upper branches, then another. They are drawn in by the calls, their curiosity piqued. They are cautious, flitting from branch to branch, always just out of reach. Now, Kalo begins to move. He takes his long, pale pole, its tip glistening with the sticky kapau. He rises from his crouch in a single, fluid motion that is so slow it is almost imperceptible. He is no longer a man, but a shadow, a branch swaying. He extends the pole up, up, up into the canopy. His target is not a bird, but a small branch near a cluster of blossoms where an iwi is feeding. He gently touches the branch with the pole, leaving behind a small, nearly invisible smear of the sap. Ethnobotanists and cultural practitioners debate the exact composition of different regional kapau recipes, whether some formulas were guarded secrets of certain families, enhanced with special saps or even chants to make them more effective. Watching Kalo, you believe it. There is an undeniable magic to his work. Now you wait again. The iwi, busy with its meal, hops sideways along the branch. Its tiny feet touch the smear of kapau. It pauses. It tries to lift its foot, but it is stuck. It tries the other, and that one becomes stuck as well. There is no violent struggle, just a moment of confusion and surprise. The moment of capture is less of a dramatic struggle, and more of a look of pure comical indignation on the bird's face. It's the avian equivalent of stepping on a piece of tape in your bare feet. Before the bird can become distressed, Kalo moves again. He extends the pole, touches the bird's back with the sticky tip and gently draws it down from the branch. His other hand is ready, and he deftly plucks the bird from the pole, cradling it in his palm. His fingers move with surgical precision, using a bit of ash from a cold fire to neutralize the sticky sap and free the bird's feet. The entire process, from the first call to the capture, was a silent, patient, and deeply respectful dance. You watch, mesmerized. This is the art of the snare. Not a brutal trap, but a gentle, clever deception. Over the next hour, you watch him and his men repeat the process, their movements perfectly synchronized, their patience infinite. Finally, Kalo gestures to you. It is your turn to try. Your heart pounds as you take the pole, its smooth wood feeling alive in your hands. You take the smooth, lightweight pole from Kalo, its balance feeling foreign in your hands. Now it is your turn to perform this silent ballet, and you are suddenly aware of your own clumsiness. Your first few attempts are not great. You try to emulate Kalo's slow, liquid movements, but you handle the 10-foot pole with the grace of a baby giraffe on roller skates. A branch rustles too loudly. Your shadow falls in the wrong place. The birds, with their hyper-aware senses, scatter before you even get close. The other catchers watch with a look of polite, silent pity. But Kalo is patient. He makes a small gesture with his hand, slower. Another gesture, lower. You take a deep breath, trying to empty your mind and simply mirror the slow, rhythmic sway of the ferns around you. You focus on a single iwi, a particularly bold one, too busy drinking nectar to notice your renewed approach. You extend the pole, your muscles trembling with the effort of controlled slowness. It feels like an eternity, but finally the sticky tip is in place. The bird hops, it sticks. Your heart leaps. You bring the pole down, your hands shaking slightly, and there it is, a tiny, furious ball of scarlet feathers, caught. Kalo is at your side instantly. He shows you how to hold the bird. You cup it in your palm, your thumb and forefinger gently securing its head, your other fingers enclosing its body to still its fluttering wings. The bird immediately calms. You can feel the frantic hummingbird-like beat of its heart against your skin, a tiny, hot, racing engine. Its color up close is breathtaking. It's not just red, it's 100 shades of red, a living flame. Now, Kalo whispers his first word in over an hour, the gift. He shows you that this part of the process is governed by a strict and sacred set of rules. This is the core of the Malama Aina philosophy that underpins your entire culture. You care for the land and the land cares for you. You do not take what you do not need, and you ensure that what you take can be replenished. He points to the bird's wings and tail. Never these, he says. These are its flight, its life. He then points to the soft, downy feathers on its belly. Not these. These are its warmth. He gently extends one of the bird's wings and shows you the small patch of incredibly vibrant scarlet feathers on its back and the brilliant ones on its breast. Only these, the brightest. Its beauty. He then demonstrates the technique. He grasps a single tiny feather close to its base and gives a quick, expert twist. The feather comes free without a struggle. He does this 4 more times, his fingers moving with a speed and confidence that is mesmerizing. You notice for the first time a hard, smooth callus on the side of his forefinger, a silent testament to the tens of thousands of times he has performed this exact motion. It is the subtle badge of a master. Kalo makes it look as easy as pulling a loose thread. Your attempt is more like trying to perform delicate surgery with mittens on, but you follow his instruction, your touch as gentle as you can make it. The bird seems to give you a look that says, "Are you quite sure you're qualified for this?" You manage to pluck 5 perfect shimmering feathers. The entire process is governed by restraint. While the ideal of catch and release was the sacred standard, historians and ecologists debate how consistently it was practiced, especially when demand for feathers was high. But Kalo is teaching you the pure form, the spiritually correct way. To take too many feathers would be to steal, not to borrow. It would leave the bird vulnerable to the cold, damp forest air, and it would offend the gods who created it. With the 5 feathers secured, the final act is the release. Kalo nods to you. You loosen your grip and open your palm. For a second, the iiwi lies still, seemingly stunned by its freedom. Then with an explosive burst of energy, it launches itself into the air. It shoots up into the canopy, a flash of scarlet, and vanishes. You half expect it to leave a 1-star review of the service for its friends. It is gone, a little less red than before, but alive, free, and able to continue its vital role in the forest ecosystem. You look down at your open palm. Lying there are 5 of the most beautiful things you have ever seen. They are impossibly light, yet they seem to hold a weight of meaning, of effort, of a deep and complex bargain made with the forest. These 5 tiny feathers are the first contribution to the Great Cloak, the very beginning of the chief's mantle. You look up at the endless canopy, alive with the movement of thousands of other birds. The scale of the task ahead feels both immense and, for the first time, truly possible. You stand there for a long moment, staring at the 5 scarlet feathers in your palm. They are perfect. Each barb and filament is a miracle of natural engineering. The pride you feel is immense, a deep satisfaction that comes from learning a difficult and sacred skill. But as you continue to look at your tiny treasure, another feeling begins to creep in. It's the slow dawning horror of mathematics. The kappa blueprint for the cloak is burned into your memory, the vast field of crimson, the bold lines of yellow. You do a quick, rough calculation in your head. If the cloak needs, say, 500,000 feathers, a conservative estimate, and you get 5 feathers from each bird, you carry the 1. You arrive at the staggering conclusion that this project will require 100,000 successful bird captures, 100,000 delicate, patient dances, 100,000 releases. You look from the 5 feathers in your hand to the endless green canopy. The timescale of the project suddenly stretches out before you, not into years but into generations. You might not even live to see it finished. You'll be finished sometime in the 27th century. Better ask the chief for an extension. This is the central, troubling question that hangs over every magnificent ʻahu ʻula that exists today. Was this practice truly sustainable? You have just been taught the ideal method, the sacred way, by a master who reveres the forest. But was the ideal always the reality? What happened in times of war, when a chief needed to project immense power quickly? What happened when the demand for yellow feathers, plucked from birds that yielded only a few at a time, grew to a fever pitch? This brings us, as we drift here in this ancient forest, to the question of extinction. The beautiful ʻo and the legendary mamo, the sources of the priceless yellow feathers, are gone forever. The brilliant iiwi still survives, but its numbers are a fraction of what they once were. It's easy to look at this story, at this immense demand for feathers, and draw a straight line to their disappearance. The demand simply outstripped the supply. The hunt was too successful. This is one side of the story, a clear and compelling narrative of cause and effect. But the truth, as it so often is much muddier. The central debate among environmental historians today is not if the feather trade had an impact, but how significant that impact was in comparison to the ecological cascade that followed Western contact. In your time, standing here in the 1700s, the Hawaiian ecosystem is a finely tuned instrument that has been playing the same song for millennia. But it is about to be violently retuned. The arrival of Captain Cook in 1778, just a few short years from now, will change everything. His ships, and all the ships that follow are their own floating ecosystems, carrying stowaways. Rats, cats, and eventually the mongoose arrive, predators against which the native birds, having evolved in their absence, have absolutely no defense. Even more devastating are the invisible invaders. Mosquitoes arrive, and they bring with them diseases like avian malaria. The native honey creepers, living for eons in a mosquito-free paradise, have no immunity. For them, a single mosquito bite is a death sentence. And then comes the massive deforestation of the 19th century, as the lowland forests are cleared for the sandalwood trade, and then for the vast, thirsty sugar plantations. The bird's home is systematically destroyed. So, was it the feather cloaks that did it? Or the rats? Or the mosquitoes and the loss of the forests? It's the ultimate historical whodunit. And the victim is an entire ecosystem. My money's on the mosquitoes. They're always shady. The most likely answer is that it was all of it. The traditional hunt for feathers likely put the populations of the rarest birds, like the mamo, under significant stress. Then, the arrival of disease and predators delivered the final knockout blow. There is a heartbreaking story, a fragment from a future you can't imagine. In 1987, an ornithologist was searching for the very last Kauai ʻo. He played a recording of the bird's beautiful flute-like mating call into the silent forest. And from the dense canopy, the last known male of his species appeared. He sang a beautiful, lonely duet with the recording, trying to call to a female who would never answer. Soon after, he was gone, and the song of the ʻo fell silent forever. But you know nothing of this. You know nothing of ships or sugar or a world without the call of the ʻo. You look up at the forest around you, and it is a picture of perfect, self-regulating harmony. It feels eternal, unshakable. You have no idea that in just a few hundred years, this entire system is going to get a software update it really didn't ask for, full of bugs and viruses. You carefully place the 5 scarlet feathers into a small, polished gourd Kalo gave you for this purpose. They are the first drop in a vast bucket, but they feel different now. They are not just beautiful objects, they are alone. They carry the weight of a promise you have made, a promise to the forest, to the birds, and to the future. A promise to take only what you need, and to always leave enough for tomorrow. The seasons turn. The sun and rain wash over the high mountain forests, and your life falls into a new rhythm, dictated by the flowering of the trees and the movements of the birds. The expeditions with Kalo become a regular pilgrimage. Each time you return to the village, your body's weary from the trek, but your polished gourds filled with tiny, colorful treasures. Weeks of patient work in the misty highlands result in what seems like a small handful of feathers. It is a lesson in humility and scale, and with each return, the next phase of the work grows more urgent. Back in the village, a special hut has been constructed for the project, its walls tightly woven to keep out the wind and dust. The kahuna has blessed it, placing protective ti leaves at its entrance. This is your workshop, your sanctuary, and it is here that you face the river of tiny jewels. You and your team of helpers, your cousins and nieces, sit on cool lauhala mats. One by one, you unstopper the gourds brought back from the forest and gently, carefully, pour their contents out onto clean kapa cloths. You empty one gourd, then another and another until you are surrounded by a breathtaking, shimmering, chaotic mountain of feathers. It is like the world's most luxurious and least comfortable pillow has just exploded in your workspace. Now begins a task that requires a completely different kind of patience from the hunt. The hunt was about stillness and stealth. This is about focus and precision. The sorting. It is a monumental undertaking, an act of imposing order on a universe of tiny, perfect things. Sorting feathers by 5 different criteria for 8 hours a day is a great way to find out if you truly have the soul of a poet or the mind of an accountant. Turns out for this project, you need to be both. First, you sort by color. This seems simple, but your eyes quickly learn the subtleties. The red of the ikiwi is not one red, but many. There is the bright, fiery scarlet from a young bird in its prime, and the deeper, almost blood-like crimson of an older one. There are feathers with a slight orange tint, and others that lean towards magenta in the right light. To create the vast, uniform field of color the chief desires, each of these subtle variations must be graded and separated. The same is true for the yellow of the ʻahu. Some feathers are a pale primrose, while others are a deep, buttery gold. Next, you sort by size and shape. A tiny, downy feather from the breast is fundamentally different from a longer, sleeker one from the back. Each has its place. The final cloak must have a surface as smooth and dense as velvet. This is achieved by layering the feathers like shingles on a roof, and that requires knowing the precise size and shape of every single piece you are working with. Finally, you sort for quality. You hold each feather up to the light, looking for imperfections, a broken shaft, a frayed edge. But you are also looking for a special quality, a certain luster or iridescence that some feathers possess. These are the premium feathers, the ones with the most potent visual mana. You set these aside, reserving them for the most prominent areas of the design, where they will catch the sun and seem to glow with their own inner light. This is slow, meditative, and mind-numbing work. Your fingers, after hours of this delicate labor, learn a new language, the language of texture and weight. The only sounds in the hut are the whisper-soft rustle of the feathers being moved and the low murmur of your helpers' voices. And all the while, the pile grows. These feathers are not just craft supplies, they are wealth. In your society, finely woven mats, certain types of stone, and beautiful feathers are the ultimate measure of riches. Chiefs demand tribute in the form of feathers, and these gourds, now meticulously sorted, represent a treasure greater than any other. As the days turn into weeks, you begin to experience a strange phenomenon. After staring intently at the brilliant crimson and gold for hours on end, you find that when you close your eyes, the colors are still there. You see shimmering, floating after images, blobs of red and yellow that dance in the darkness behind your eyelids. It's a condition the sorters know as feather dazzle. It's a free but very weird perk of the job. As you place the sorted feathers into new clean gourds, you add a few dried, fragrant leaves. Museum curators and conservators still debate the methods ancient Hawaiians used to protect the feathers from pests during long-term storage. You, however, are following the kahuna's instruction. Using the leaves of a specific plant, he says, will displease the tiny insects that would seek to devour your treasure. The gourds are stoppered and arranged in neat rows, a library of color, each one a testament to thousands of patient movements. The chaotic river has been channeled into orderly tributaries. The raw material is now ready. The next step is to build the foundation upon which these jewels will rest. The gourds of sorted feathers are now arranged along the wall of your workshop, a silent, shimmering library of color. They are the promise of the beauty to come. But for now, you must turn away from them. You set them aside with a feeling of reverence and reluctance because the next phase of the work is devoid of their brilliant color. It is the hidden work, the creation of the foundation, the very soul of the cloak that will give it its shape and strength. You're about to spend the next year of your life creating a structural masterpiece that absolutely no one will ever see. It's the ultimate act of artistic humility, or perhaps just a very elaborate inside joke for you and the gods. Before a single feather can be tied, you must first build the frame that will hold it. This is the neipuni, a fine yet incredibly strong netting that will serve as the canvas for your masterpiece. A weak or poorly made neipuni would mean disaster. The weight of the feathers would tear it apart, and a century of work could unravel in a single moment. The foundation must be perfect, and for perfection, you need the perfect material. In a large, clean basket at your side are coils of fine, pale cordage. This is olonā. It is not just any fiber. It is a legend. Harvested from the inner bark of a shrub that grows only in the wet, cool foothills of the mountains. Olonā is the strongest natural fiber known to your people. It is finer than flax, stronger than hemp, and more resistant to rot in the salty sea air than any other cordage. This is the fiber used for the rigging of voyaging canoes, for the fishing lines that haul in massive tuna and sharks, and for the nets that must withstand the punishing force of the ocean. The olonā cord is so strong you could probably use it to tow another island closer if you felt like it. For now, you'll just use it to make a king's cape. Controlling the areas where the best olonā grew was a major strategic goal for any ambitious chief, making this humble-looking fiber a true sinew of power. You pick up a length of the prepared cord. It is astonishingly fine, barely thicker than a strand of hair from a horse's tail, yet it feels dense, cool to the touch. It has been twisted with such skill that its surface is perfectly smooth. This is the thread from which you will build a king's legacy. Your first step is to unroll the precious kappa blueprint again, laying it flat on the mat. You will begin at the neckline, the most structurally important part of the entire cloak. All the weight will hang from this curved edge. It must be flawless. You take the olonā cord and begin the slow, rhythmic process of tying the first knots. You are creating a fine mesh, a net with a tiny repeating diamond pattern. Textile experts and historians debate the exact tools used to create such a regular, consistent mesh. While simple tools have been found, the almost machine-like perfection of the finest surviving examples points to a level of skill that is hard to comprehend. You use a simple gauge, a small flat piece of polished wood with a notch in it, to ensure every single mesh diamond is exactly the same size as the last. You tie a knot, slip the gauge into place, and tie the next. Over and over. Your social life is officially on hold. Your new best friends are this spool of thread and your own slowly dissolving sanity. As you work on the curved neckline, you make the mesh especially fine, the openings no bigger than your little fingernail. This will provide a dense, strong foundation for the collar and ensure a clean, smooth edge. As the netting begins to grow downwards, you will switch to a slightly larger gauge for the main body of the cloak. This subtle shift in mesh size is a master OS trick. It conserves precious time and the even more precious olonā cord, while providing extra strength and a fine finish only where it is most needed. The work is hypnotic. The only sound is the soft whisk of the cord as you pull each knot tight. Your hands, which learned the subtle art of plucking feathers, now engage in a different kind of dance, a dance of tension and structure. You are creating something from almost nothing, a strong, flexible fabric from a single, continuous line. A few hours pass, and you have completed only a few rows. A small, pale, crescent-shaped web lies on the dark mat before you. It is the ghost of the cloak's collar, the first tangible piece of its skeleton. It seems impossibly fragile, yet you know it possesses a deep, hidden strength. You look from this pale, geometric web to the vibrant, chaotic promise of the feathers in their gourds. For now, the two exist in different worlds. Your job is to build the bridge that will finally bring them together. Your fingers move in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. Loop, cross, pull tight. Knot after knot, the fine web of the nepuni grows. As you work with the olonā cord, feeling its incredible strength and smoothness, your mind drifts back to its origin. This thread didn't just appear in a basket. Its creation was a journey in itself, a process as demanding and steeped in tradition as any other part of the cloak's construction. You remember the journey you took months ago to the place where the olonā is grown. You had to leave the sunny, open spaces of the coast and travel inland to a deep, narrow gulch, a place of permanent shade and damp, cool air. The olonā plant is basically the most high-maintenance member of the plant kingdom. It demands shade, but not total darkness. It needs constant moisture, but only from a clean, running stream. You half expected to demand its water be served sparkling, with a twist of lime. This gulch was a carefully cultivated plantation, the result of generations of sophisticated agriculture. Archaeobotanists still debate exactly when your ancestors transitioned from merely gathering wild olonā to actively cultivating it, but the evidence of that mastery is all around you here. The plants, which are members of the nettle family, grow in neat rows, their stalks reaching 6 to 8 feet high, straight and unbranched, a sign of careful, deliberate pruning. The men who tend these plants, the kama'aina o ka olonā, are specialists. Their families have farmed this valley for time out of mind. They showed you how they harvest the stalks, selecting only those that are perfectly mature. The cut stalks are then bundled and brought to a clearing by the stream, where the real work begins. This is where the plant's hidden treasure is unlocked through a process of sheer, repetitive, and highly skilled labor. You watched as a master craftsman sat before a papa olonā, a long, narrow board of smooth, dark wood. He took a single stalk and, with a deft flick of a sharpened mussel shell, stripped away the useless outer bark. What remained was the inner bark, the bast, a ribbon of pale green fiber. He laid this ribbon flat on the board. Then, he took his most important tool, the olonā, a scraper made from the shin bone of a turtle, its edge worn smooth and sharp through years of use. Then began the sound that filled the valley, a steady rhythmic sht, sht, sht. He drew the sharp edge of the bone down the length of the fiber, again and again. With each pass, a layer of green pulp and sticky sap was scraped away, leaving behind a trail of the purest, silkiest, most luminous white fibers you have ever seen. You spend an entire day scraping green gunk off of plant stalks to reveal the precious fibers within. It's a smelly, messy, and incredibly satisfying job, like peeling a very stubborn 8-foot-long banana. The work requires not just strength, but a specific state of mind. It is said that the knowledge of scraping olonā is sacred. If the scraper is angry or impatient, their negative mana will flow into the tool and through to the fiber, causing it to weaken and break. The secret to perfect fiber is a calm mind, a steady hand, and probably a secret family handshake. It's the ultimate "you wouldn't like me when I'm angry" crafting scenario. After the scraping is complete, the hanks of pure, clean fiber are taken to the stream. They are washed in the cool, clear water, swished back and forth until every last bit of pulp is gone. Then, they are hung to dry on long racks, placed carefully in the shade to protect them from the harsh sun. The sight of it is breathtaking. Hundreds of these shimmering, silvery white hanks of raw fiber, stirring gently in the breeze. It looks like the hair of a goddess spun sunlight. This is the raw material of strength. This plant, Tuchardia latifolia, is found nowhere else on Earth. It is endemic to these islands, a unique gift from the gods, and its fiber is the technological secret behind your people's mastery of the sea and the land. Your mind returns to the present. You are back in your workshop, the hypnotic scrape, scrape, scrape of the valley replaced by the soft whisk of the cord in your hands. Beside you are baskets filled with those same shimmering fibers now dried and ready. As the nepuni grows, you will need more cord, and you will twist it yourself from this raw supply. You look at the single thread running through your fingers. It is no longer just a piece of string. You know its story. You know the shaded valley, the patient farmer, the rhythmic scrape of bone on wood, the cool water of the stream. All of that effort, all of that history, is concentrated in this one, impossibly strong line. It is a foundation worthy of a king. The small crescent-shaped web of the nepuni grows slowly, row by patient row. After several days of this focused, repetitive work, you reach the end of the first coil of olonā cord. The work must stop. Before you can continue building the foundation, you must first create more of the thread itself. You turn to the baskets of raw, shimmering fiber that you prepared and brought back from the mountain gulch. The time has come to transform these loose, silvery hanks into a single, continuous, and impossibly strong line. You take a handful of the dried fibers. They are cool and smooth to the touch like raw silk, but you can feel their latent strength. There is no spinning wheel here, no complex loom. The only tools you will use are your hands and your own body. This is perhaps the most ancient and intimate of all the textile arts. You sit comfortably on your mat, your legs outstretched. You are about to discover a muscle in your thigh you didn't know you had. This is the original Pilates. But instead of a toned core, your reward is a spool of high-tensile cordage and a leg that feels like it has been lightly sandpapered for a week. You select a small, even bunch of fibers, maybe a dozen or so. You lay them across the bare skin of your upper thigh. Then, with the flat palm of your hand, you begin to roll. You push your palm forward and the loose fibers catch on your skin, rolling together, compressing, twisting into a single, fine ply. The sound is a soft, abrasive whisper. Shh. You reach the end of the fibers, and with a practiced motion, you feed in a few more, overlapping them just so. You roll again and the new fibers seamlessly join the old, creating a continuous thread. You repeat this motion again and again. Roll, feed, roll. It is a hypnotic, unbroken rhythm. After you have created a long, single ply, the real magic begins. You find its midpoint and fold it in half, creating a two-ply strand. Now, holding the two strands together, you place them on your thigh and roll your palm backwards, in the opposite direction of the first twist. This counter twist forces the two plies to wrap tightly around each other, locking them together in a permanent, balanced embrace. The cord springs into a tight, perfect spiral. This is the secret to its strength. The two plies are constantly trying to untwist, but they are held in check by each other, creating a state of dynamic internal tension. This thigh-rolling technique is one of the oldest fiber technologies in the world, a method your distant ancestors brought with them across the vast Pacific. But the use of the unique olonā fiber has elevated it to an art of incredible strength and refinement. You work for hours. A small pile of perfect finished cord begins to accumulate at your side. Every inch must be flawless. No lumps, no bumps, no spots where the fibers are too thin or too thick. The quality control on this project is intense. You're pretty sure the Chief's Cloak has stricter manufacturing standards than a modern spaceship. The cord you are making for the nepuni needs a specific quality, a medium twist, not too hard, so that it retains its flexibility and allows the finished cloak to drape softly. A master cord maker can create dozens of variations just by altering the pressure of their hand or the speed of their roll, and there is an ongoing discussion among craft specialists today as to whether these subtle personal styles can be identified in ancient artifacts. Slowly, your body adapts to the work. A tough, smooth callus begins to form on the palm of your hand. The skin on your thigh, at first red and tender, grows accustomed to the constant friction. You roll and twist, roll and twist. Hours pass, days pass. You start to see the world as things that could be twisted into a two-ply cord. That wisp of cloud, twistable. That ray of sun through the doorway, probably twistable. You might need to take a break soon, but the work is deeply satisfying. You are watching chaos become order under your own hand. You are taking a loose pile of individual fragile fibers and transforming them into a single, unified whole that is exponentially stronger. By the end of the day, you have a large new coil of olonā cord, wound neatly onto a wooden spindle. It is identical in every way to the cord you were using before. You take the end of the new cord and, with a few deft, nearly invisible knots, splice it onto the end of the cord on your nepuni. The join is seamless. You pick up your netting gauge and continue your work, looping, crossing, and pulling tight. The rhythm is restored. The foundation continues to grow, fed by a thread born from the forest and from the patient, powerful work of your own hands. Awaiting continuity, with a fresh supply of olonā cord ready, you return to the slow and patient task of creation. The work continues, a quiet and constant rhythm that becomes the new center of your life. Loop, cross, pull tight. Place the wooden gauge. Loop, cross, pull tight. Remove the gauge. The sounds are a soft, hypnotic mantra that fills the workshop day after day. A soft click as the gauge is set, the gentle whisk of the cord being tightened, another click as the gauge is removed. This is the soundtrack to the creation of a masterpiece. Days blur into weeks, and weeks into months. The seasons outside your workshop change. The brilliant red blossoms of the ohia give way to the fruiting of the breadfruit tree. Small children who were just learning to walk when you tied the first knot at the neckline are now old enough to chase each other through the village, their laughter a distant counterpoint to your focused silence. You, however, are still here, in the cool, dim light, tying knots. The small web you began with has grown, spilling from your lap onto the mats around you. It is a slow, creeping tide of pale, perfect diamonds. Your body has become a part of the process. Your fingers are now tough and calloused, moving with an unconscious and economical grace. Your back, however, has slowly morphed into a shape that can only be described as a human shrimp. You make a solemn vow to spend an entire day standing up straight, sometime in the next decade or so. To maintain your rhythm and focus during the long, silent hours, you begin to hum a low, repetitive chant, a mele for the weavers. It's an old song, one your grandmother sang, telling the story of the first woman who learned to twist fiber from the gods. The soft melody embeds itself into the knots, weaving not just thread, but stories and prayers into the very fabric of the foundation. As the netting grows, you constantly refer back to the kappa blueprint, which is now pinned to the wall of the hut. You are not just making a flat rectangle, you are sculpting a garment. To create the gentle, elegant flair of the cloak's shape, You must carefully add new meshes at the edges of the rows. You do this by tying 2 knots into a single loop from the row above, a subtle widening that will allow the finished cloak to sweep out dramatically from the shoulders. It requires careful counting and planning. A mistake here would be disastrous, creating a pucker or a pull in the final garment. There is a debate among scholars about whether the whole nepuni was finished before feathering began, or if it was done in sections. You are following the path of the masters. You will complete the entire skeleton first, creating a perfect, whole foundation before a single feather is attached. The shape you are creating is the height of modern fashion. The earliest feather capes were simple trapezoids, but the style has evolved. The grand cloaks of your time, like the one you are making, have a gracefully curved neckline and a sweeping, almost circular hem, a design that drapes with a noble elegance. Some say this more tailored fit was inspired by the cloaks worn by the strange, pale-skinned visitors who have recently begun to appear on the horizon in their massive floating canoes. But the craftsmanship is entirely your own. The highlight of your month is the day you finally finish the densely knotted top section and can switch to the slightly larger gauge for the main body of the cloak. The sheer, unadulterated thrill of using a different-sized piece of wood is almost too much to handle after months of the same repetitive motion. The work accelerates slightly, the diamonds of the mesh now a fraction larger, and the fabric grows more quickly under your hands. And then, after more than a year of continuous, painstaking labor, you tie the final knot at the hem. It is done. You and your helpers stand, your backs cracking in protest, and you lift the nepuni. It is a huge, ethereal object, a pale, limp ghost of a cloak. Held up to the light, it is a delicate, semi-transparent web that seems impossibly fragile. It has no color, no flash, no drama. On its own, it is almost nothing. But you see it for what it is, a perfect, flawless, and incredibly strong foundation. It is a monument to patience. The skeleton is complete. The canvas is stretched. Now finally, you can turn back to the waiting library of color, to the gourds filled with their shimmering, vibrant promise. The real painting is about to begin. The great pale net of the nepuni lies spread across the finest mats in the workshop. It is a still and silent ocean of potential, waiting for its first drop of color. The years of preparation, the hunt, the sorting, the processing of the fiber, the endless knotting, all led to this single moment. But you cannot simply begin. Such a momentous step, the joining of the divine feathers to the earthly foundation, must be sanctioned by the gods. It requires a ceremony. On a morning deemed auspicious by the heavens, the old kahuna arrives at your workshop. He moves with a slow, deliberate grace, and his presence immediately transforms the familiar space into a temple. The atmosphere becomes charged, thick with a spiritual gravitas that makes the air feel heavy. You're afraid to breathe too loudly in case you accidentally offend a deity. It's like the final round of a divine baking show, and you're about to put the first, all-important decoration on the cake. He carries with him a simple wooden bowl filled with seawater and a leafy branch from a Thai plant. Without a word, he begins to chant. His voice is a low, resonant hum, a puli that seems to make the very air vibrate. He is not speaking to you, but to the unseen forces, the patrons of this work. He calls to Laka, the goddess of the wild and verdant forest, giving thanks for the gift of the olonā fiber. He calls to Kuhuluhulumanu, the god of the birds, asking his forgiveness for borrowing the beauty of his children and his blessing upon their feathers. This spiritual dimension was not an afterthought in your culture, it was the entire point. Every act of creation was a collaboration with the divine. And these rituals were the formal meetings to ensure the project stayed on track and secured the favor of your powerful, unseen partners. After the chant, he walks the perimeter of the nepuni, dipping the Thai leaf into the seawater and flicking droplets onto the pale netting. A ritual of purification. He does the same for the open gourds of feathers, their colors seeming to blaze even more brightly after his blessing. Then, he turns to you. He reaches into a small pouch at his waist and pulls out something tiny. It is a single, minuscule snail shell, no bigger than a grain of rice. Its spiral a perfect, beautiful pattern. He tells you it is from a sacred pool high on the volcano, a place where the gods themselves once bathed. This, he says, must be the heart of the cloak, a hidden vessel of mana. This practice was a secret of the craft, a way of embedding a spiritual battery into the garment unknown to any but the makers. He then gestures to a gourd filled with the most perfect, uniformly scarlet ʻahu feathers. He indicates that you should prepare the first bundle. Your hands feel clumsy under his watchful gaze. You select 5 feathers of identical size and hue. You align their dark shafts perfectly, then use a short fine piece of olonā fiber to bind their bases together tightly. You have created a poe, a tiny, dense bouquet of feathers. It's adorable, but then you remember you have to make approximately 99,000 more of them, and it suddenly seems a lot less cute. You hold the tiny bundle in one hand. In the other, you take up the secret shell. The kahuna points to the exact center of the neckline's top row of meshes, the place of honor. This is where the cloak will first touch the chief, where its mana will flow into him most directly. The kahuna watches you tie the first knot with an intensity that could curdle milk. No pressure. Just perform this tiny, sacred, technically complex action perfectly while the spiritual well-being of the kingdom hangs in the balance. Using another fine olonā thread, you first secure the tiny shell to an intersection of the mesh. Then you place the feather bundle over it, hiding it completely. With a special, secure knot that you have practiced hundreds of times, you lash the bundle to the net. You pull the knot tight, and it is done. Cultural historians debate whether these rituals were purely religious or if they also served a vital social and psychological function, marking a clear transition between the phases of a long project. As you look at what you have done, you know the answer is both. There it is. A single, brilliant spot of crimson on the vast, pale expanse of the netting. It looks so small, so solitary, but it is a beginning. It has broken the spell of the blank canvas. It is a declaration that the cloak is no longer just a foundation, but something new. It is the first breath of a new life. The kahuna watches you for a long moment, then gives a single, slow nod of approval. His work is done. He turns and leaves you in the silent workshop. The path is now clear. You have one bundle. Thousands upon thousands more are to follow. That single, solitary bundle of feathers is your North Star. With the ceremony complete and the spiritual path cleared, the great labor begins in earnest. You take your seat before the nepuni, which is carefully draped over your lap. You pull a gourd of the finest scarlet ʻahu feathers towards you, take up your olonā tying thread, and get to work. Your progress will no longer be measured in rows of knots, but in the slow, creeping tide of color that will eventually consume the pale netting. The process is a 2-step dance, repeated ad infinitum. First, the creation of the poe, the tiny feather bouquet. Your apprentices now take on this crucial role, forming an efficient slow-motion assembly line. They select 5 to 7 feathers, ensuring they are all of the same length and hue. They align the shafts, tapping the tips on a smooth stone to make them perfectly even. Then, with a quick practiced motion, they bind the base of the shafts with a single strand of fiber. They pass the finished bundle to you. Second, the attachment. This is your task, as the master weaver. You take the tiny bundle. Using a fine bone awl, you make a space at a mesh intersection on the nepuni. You pass your tying thread through, loop it around the base of the feather bundle, and secure it with a specific, complex knot that your grandmother taught you. It is a variation of a clove hitch that tightens under pressure and will never slip. This knot is your signature. Conservators who study these cloaks today debate whether different weavers had unique styles, and looking at your work, you know the answer is yes. This tiny, hidden knot, which will be replicated tens of thousands of times, is your mark, your voice in the chorus of this creation. You pull the knot tight with a soft snick. The bundle is secure. You then take the next bundle and repeat the process on the mesh intersection directly beside the first. You continue this bundle by bundle in a perfectly straight line, completing a single horizontal row. The true artistry, however, is in the next step. You begin the row directly below the first. You tie the knot in the same way, but the critical detail is in the positioning. Each new bundle is placed so that its soft, feathery tips fall over the knotted base of the bundle in the row above it. The feathers from the second row completely hide the mechanics of the first. This is the secret. This is how the dense, seamless, velvet-like surface is created. It is the principle of a bird's own plumage, or the scales on a fish, or the shingles on a roof. Every bundle must perfectly overlap the one below it. It's like tiling, but the tiles are microscopic, ridiculously expensive, and if you mess one up, you feel the judging eyes of your ancestors. You also have to be mindful of the natural curve of the feathers. Each feather has a slight, graceful arc. You must tie every single bundle so that this curve faces downwards and outwards, encouraging the feathers to lie flat and follow the natural drape of the cloak. A single bundle tied facing the wrong way would stick out, a cowlick that would be an unforgivable mark of sloppy craftsmanship. The work is incredibly slow. Your progress is measured in square inches per day. After a full week of patient, focused labor, you and your team have managed to cover a section of the neckline no bigger than your two hands put together. At this rate, you'll be finished just in time for the chief's great-great-great-grandson's coronation. But the effect is already breathtaking. The color is absolute. The texture is sublime. You run your fingers over the small patch of finished work. It feels otherworldly. The thousands of individual barbs of the feathers interlock to create a surface that is softer than the finest kappa cloth with a deep liquid luster. As you work, the cloak's weight begins to grow. What was once a light, ethereal net becomes a heavy, substantial fabric. The high density of the feather bundles, a technique that distinguishes a truly royal cloak, adds surprising heft. The finest cloaks have a density that is almost unbelievable, packing in thousands of feathers per square foot, creating a garment that is not only beautiful but also a warm and protective shield. Months pass. The assembly line of your workshop has found its rhythm. The soft rustle of feathers, the quiet murmur of your helpers, the steady snick of the knots being pulled tight. You have completed the entire collar and the shoulders. The cloak now has a tangible presence, a weight that settles on your lap as you work. The vision is no longer a dream or a charcoal drawing. It is here, growing under your hands, a slow blooming flower of crimson, brought to life one tiny, perfect, invisible knot at a time. For months, your world has been a sea of crimson. Your eyes have been trained to see the subtle shifts in the scarlet feathers of the ihiwi. Your hands have known the rhythm of creating a uniform, unbroken field of color. But now, as you work your way down from the shoulders, you reach a point on the vast netting that corresponds to a mark on the kappa blueprint. The easy part is over. It is time to paint. You carefully put aside the gourd of red feathers and reach for another. This one is filled with the precious buttery yellow feathers of the ʻahu. You also bring a smaller gourd of glossy black feathers near for definition. You are transitioning from monochrome to full vibrant color. The complexity of your task is about to increase tenfold. Your brain, which has been happily coasting in a meditative state of repetition, now has to engage in the rigorous and unforgiving logic of the pattern. You're now a human spreadsheet, counting knots in your sleep. Row 53, knot 14, begin yellow. It's less visionary artist and more obsessive compulsive accountant. Your first task is to create the central spine of the cloak-ass design, the column of golden triangles, the niho mano, or shark teeth, that represent the chief's sacred paternal lineage. This is not just decoration. It is the visual announcement of his pedigree, the source of his power. According to your charcoal map, the first triangle begins here. You count the mesh intersections from the edge of the cloak, your finger tracing the invisible grid. 27 knots of red. On the 28th, you must begin the yellow. Creating a clean, sharp line between two colors is an art form in itself. The last red bundle must be tied perfectly, its feathers smoothed down flat. Then you take your first bundle of yellow ʻahu feathers. You tie it to the very next intersection, positioning it so the yellow feathers overlap the red by a hair's breadth. The goal is to create a border as crisp as a line drawn in the sand, with no hint of the pale netting showing through. Your first few knots feel clumsy, your rhythm broken by the new complexity, but soon you find the groove. You tie your 27 red bundles, then switch to yellow, creating the base of the triangle. The bold, graphic nature of the art is a hallmark of your people's visual language, a way to communicate powerful ideas with clarity and force. With each new row, you adjust the count, narrowing the band of yellow on both sides to create the triangle's tapering shape. This is painstaking work. One misplaced bundle, one miscounted knot, could make the triangle lopsided, a flaw that would be an insult to the chief and the ancestors the shape represents. Art historians debate the degree of artistic license weavers like you possessed. Were you a simple technician, rigidly following a pre-approved design? Or were you an artist, with the freedom to interpret? You know the truth is somewhere in between. The design is sacred, the pattern is set, but the choice of which specific feathers to use for the most vibrant shimmer, the precise tension of the knot, the subtle overlapping to create the perfect line, that is your art, your mana being woven into the cloak. As you are preparing one of the yellow bundles, you notice a single tiny scarlet feather has found its way into the bunch. A mistake, an imperfection. You could easily remove it, but you pause. Some weavers believe that only the gods can achieve true perfection, and that for a human to create a flawless work is an act of hubris. They say you must leave a tiny, deliberate flaw, a maka, an eye, to give the object a soul and show humility. You look at the tiny flash of red amidst the gold. It's your little artistic signature, a hidden act of rebellion that says, this masterpiece was made by a human, and also I'm getting a little tired. You tie the bundle into place, the tiny red feather all but invisible, a secret between you, the cloak, and the gods. After weeks of this intense focus, the first triangle is complete. You pause your work and hold the section up. There, against the deep crimson field, is a perfect, luminous triangle of gold, outlined with a razor-thin border of black. It seems to float on the red surface, a symbol of pure concentrated power. It is no longer just a beautiful texture, it is a word, a name, a story. You are not just tying feathers to a net, you are writing a history book, painting a map of mana, row by meticulous row. The cloak has started to speak, and its first word is power. The golden triangle you just completed is a beacon on the sea of red. It is a testament to weeks of painstaking, methodical work. But it was made with the feathers of the ʻahu, the more common, if one can even use that word, of the yellow-feathered birds. Now your work must move back up to the neckline, to the sacred crescents that will frame the chief's face. And for this, only the ultimate treasure will do. You reach for a gourd that has been kept separate from the others, one sealed with a special wooden stopper and wrapped in its own protective kapa cloth. This is the gourd of mamo feathers. You unstopper the gourd with the same care you'd use to handle a delicate egg. The feathers inside seem to capture the dim light of the workshop and amplify it, glowing with a deep, rich, almost orange gold fire that makes the ʻahu feathers seem pale in comparison. They are so precious, you're half surprised they don't have their own tiny security detail. In your culture, this is the color of divinity. Red is the color of chiefs and gods, a symbol of power and physical presence. But yellow is the color of the divine essence itself, the shimmering sacred light of the gods known as ʻakua. To wear yellow is to declare yourself not just a ruler, but a vessel for the divine. The value placed on these feathers is almost impossible to comprehend. Forget gold bars or cryptocurrency. In your world, the ultimate store of value is a gourd full of mamo feathers. They are the highest form of currency, the most sought-after tribute. A lesser chief wishing to show his loyalty and affirm the power of his ali'i nui would spend years tasking his own kia manu to gather these feathers to be paid as a tax. A chief who could commission a cloak like this with vast fields of yellow was making an undeniable statement. He was showing that his influence was so great, his land so vast and well-managed, that he could command the labor of hundreds of people and the treasures of the deepest forests. The cloak becomes a map not just of lineage, but of political and economic power. Historians debate whether this intense focus on yellow over red was an ancient tradition or a more recent trend, perhaps accelerated by the desire to create ever more spectacular displays of power in an age of increasing political consolidation. Your chief is certainly leaning into his golden god phase. He wants to be draped in the color of the sun itself. It's a bold look, and a logistical nightmare for your department. The association of yellow and gold with royalty and the gods isn't unique to your islands. It's a nearly universal human impulse, seen in the tombs of pharaohs and the palaces of emperors across the world. But here, that universal impulse is tied to a specific, living, and incredibly rare creature, which makes the color all the more potent. There is another layer of meaning here, a beautiful turn of language. The word mamo, the name of this precious bird, also means descendant or posterity. So as you begin to work with these feathers, you are literally weaving the chief's mamo, his lineage, using the feathers of the mamo. It is a profound, poetic circle of meaning. You create your first bundle of the mamo feathers. They feel different in your hand, slightly softer and denser than the ʻo feathers. You tie the bundle to the neckline next to the field of crimson. The color is so rich it seems to vibrate. You are now working with the most precious physical substance in your world. The work feels heavier, each knot more significant. You are no longer just an artisan. You are a custodian of a treasure beyond measure, transforming it into an object of even greater power. The crescent begins to take shape, a sliver of pure, captured sunlight against the deep, earthy red. It is the beginning of the cloak's divine halo, the frame for the chief's sacred head. The responsibility is immense, but the beauty is transcendent. As your fingers begin to work with the sacred mamo feathers, you feel a subtle shift in the world around you. The air in the workshop seems to grow quieter, the light a little softer. The project has entered a new and more spiritually potent phase, and with it comes a new and more intense set of rules. Your entire workshop and everyone in it is now living under a strict kapu. Kapu is the central pillar of your society, the system of sacred laws that maintains order and balance between the world of humans and the world of the gods. It defines what is sacred and what is common, what is permitted and what is forbidden. Now, a special set of these prohibitions descends upon your small hut. The kahuna himself drives sacred staffs, pahoa, into the ground outside, marking the perimeter of a holy space. These are a clear and intimidating signal to the rest of the village. Do not cross this line. The workshop now has more rules than the fussiest, most exclusive club. Entry is forbidden to anyone not directly involved in the creation of the cloak. A stray child wandering in, an uninvited visitor, could drain the project of its accumulating mana, spoiling years of work in a single moment. The rules for your team become even stricter. There can be no arguments, no harsh words, no idle or malicious gossip spoken within these walls. The no idle gossip rule is particularly tough. You have to save up all the juicy details about your neighbor's new fishing lure until after work. The emotional and spiritual state of the weaver is believed to be woven directly into the object, and so only focus, harmony, and positive intention are allowed. The work is now a full-time immersive ritual. You may only work during the daylight hours, as the night is believed to belong to other, more unpredictable spirits. On the sacred nights of the lunar month dedicated to the major gods, all work ceases. These are days for rest and prayer, for allowing the cloak to absorb the spiritual energy you have so far imbued it with. Breaking one of these rules is not like making a simple mistake. The consequences are dire. Scholars today debate whether the kapu system was primarily a tool for social control by the elite or a deeply held belief system for maintaining cosmic balance. From where you sit, it feels like both. The kapu certainly reinforces the chief's immense authority, but you also feel its necessity in your bones. To break kapu is to invite chaos, to risk not just the project but the favor of the gods for the entire community. It's not like getting a parking ticket. The penalty is more along the lines of a sudden drought or a mysterious blight on the taro crop. So, you follow the rules. The kahuna visits each morning to ensure the sanctity of the space is intact. He performs a short cleansing chant, his voice a low hum that seems to sweep the corners of the hut clean of any stray, unwanted spiritual influences. He watches you and your helpers, his gaze assessing not just the quality of your work, but the state of your spirit. His presence is a constant reminder of the stakes. This is no longer just a craft project. It is a sustained act of prayer. Every feather bundle you tie is a word in that prayer, every knot a seal on its intention. You exist within this sacred bubble for months. The world outside continues with its noises and its dramas, but inside the workshop, there is only the quiet rustle of feathers, the soft whisk of the olonā thread, and the deep, focused silence of creation. The intense pressure and the strict limitations have a strange effect. They strip away all that is unnecessary, leaving only the work itself. Your focus becomes sharper than it has ever been. Your hands move with a certainty that feels guided by something beyond your own will. You are not just building a cloak, you are building a vessel for power, and to do so, you and your workshop must first become a vessel of perfect sacred order. The kapu remains, but the workshop is no longer a temporary space. It is a permanent feature of your life and of the village. The rhythmic work continues day after day, year after year. The sun rises and sets. The seasons of rain and sun wash over the islands. A koa tree that was just a sapling when you tied the first knot now stands tall enough to shade the roof of your hut. Time, which once seemed to stretch out before you, now flows like a quiet river, and this cloak is the island you are building in its center. The years are marked not in days, but in the growth of the cloak itself. You have been working on it for so long, you've developed a personal relationship with the spiders in the corners of the hut. You've named the big one, Cain. He's a good listener. You are no longer the young, nimble artisan who first met the chief. Your hair has strands of gray like sea foam. Your back complains more loudly after a long day hunched over your work. Your hands, once smooth and strong, are now a map of your life's work, covered in the calluses of the weaver and the cord maker. And your eyesight is not what it used to be. You now require the assistance of your niece to thread the fine olonā fiber through the eye of your bone needle. She finds this hilarious. You remind her that one day her own eyes will tire, and you will have your sweet, ghostly revenge. The project's timeline has shifted from long-term to something approaching a geological epoch. This reality, that a single lifetime might not be enough, has always been a part of the plan. There is significant debate among historians about average lifespans in your time, but everyone knows that life is uncertain. A master must always have an apprentice, a successor to carry the knowledge forward. And so you have been teaching your own daughter. You remember her as a small child, watching with wide eyes from the doorway of the kapu workshop, just beyond the sacred boundary. Now she sits beside you, a young woman whose hands have learned the family trade. You watch as she prepares a poe of the precious mamo feathers, her movements a mirror of your own. You showed her how to feel for the grain of the feathers, how to twist the olonā fiber just so, how to tie the weaver's knot that is your lineage's signature. She is good. Her hands are steady, her mind is patient. She ties a bundle to the growing edge of the cloak and the knot is perfect. A quiet, fierce pride swells in your chest. The cloak is no longer just your responsibility, it is hers too. This generational effort extends beyond your workshop. The entire community remains invested. The ʻahu, your wedge of land from the mountains to the sea, functions as a single living organism to support this work. Kaelo, now an elder, has trained a new generation of kia manu to make the long treks into the forest. The farmers and fishermen of your community regularly leave offerings of food, taro, sweet potatoes, fresh fish wrapped in tai leaves, at the edge of the kapu zone. They are feeding the cloak, sustaining its creators. In turn, the cloak's growing mana is believed to bless the entire community, ensuring their crops are bountiful and their nets are full. It is a circle of mutual sacred obligation. Sometime during the long years, the cloak was given a name. You no longer call it the chief's cloak. You call it Kaeaokalani, which means the rising of the chief. The name gives it a life, a personality. It is a member of the community now, a slow-growing, silent, and incredibly demanding elder. You look at the work spread across the mats. It is more than 3/4 complete, a vast, heavy, shimmering expanse of crimson and gold. It is so large now that you and your daughter can work on different sections at the same time. You run your hand over its surface. It feels alive. It holds the warmth of the sun, the memory of thousands of birds, the strength of the olonā, and the imprint of your own life's energy. You realize, with a feeling that is not sadness, but a deep and quiet peace, that you may not be the one to tie the final knot. Your daughter might be the one to finish it, and that is as it should be. The cloak was never meant to be the work of one person. It is the work of a people. Its true beauty is not just in its colors, but in the time and the lineage that it holds within every single perfect knot. You are in the final stretches of creating Kaeaokalani. The vast majority of the netting is now covered in a shimmering blanket of feathers, the great geometric patterns telling their story of power and lineage. The end feels, for the first time, tantalizingly close. And it is precisely at this moment that a messenger arrives from the chief's compound. Just when you're in the final sprint of the biggest project of your life, the client comes back with a side gig. The messenger carries a folded bundle wrapped in clean kapa. He unwraps it to reveal another cape, an older, smaller garment that once belonged to the chief's father. It is beautiful but battle-worn. A section of the netting is torn, and a patch of the red feathers has been scraped away, likely by the tip of a spear. Your task is to mend it. This is a different kind of work. Not creation, but conservation. It requires a different kind of skill, a surgeon's touch. You first turn your attention to the foundation, the torn nipuni. With the tiniest of bone needles and a fine olonā thread, you begin to repair the web. You must replicate the original weaver's tension and knot style, splicing the new threads into the old with such skill that the mend is all but invisible. It is like repairing a spider's web, a slow and delicate process of restoring integrity to a damaged structure. Once the foundation is secure, you address the missing feathers. You consult your library of gourds, searching for red ʻahu feathers that match the slightly faded color of the decades-old cape. You find a batch that is a near-perfect match. Then, following the original pattern, you begin to tie new bundles into the repaired netting, carefully overlapping them with the surviving feathers to create a seamless patch. As you are finishing the repair, another message comes from the chief. He has just secured a powerful new alliance by marrying the daughter of a chief from a neighboring island. To honor this new bond, he wants a symbol of his new wife's lineage, a small golden crescent, added to the shoulder of this ancestral cape. So now you're not just a weaver and a conservationist, you're also the head of the chief's public relations, tasked with visually announcing his updated political status. This request reveals a profound truth about these garments. They are not static objects frozen at the moment of their creation. They are living documents. Analysis of cloaks that survive in museums today confirms that many were altered over their lifetimes, repaired, added to, and changed to reflect the evolving stories of their owners. You are participating in this ancient tradition of editing history. Before you begin, the kahuna comes to perform a small ritual, chanting to ensure the mana of the two great lineages, your chief's and his new wife's, will blend harmoniously within the cape. Scholars still debate the precise rituals required for such alterations, but you know in your heart that such a significant change requires a spiritual blessing to be successful. You carefully remove a section of the original red feathers from the shoulder of the cape. In their place, using the finest ʻo feathers, you weave a small perfect crescent of gold. It is a slow, exacting process, integrating a new word into a finished sentence. These cloaks are less like a finished painting and more like a living document that can be edited and annotated by successive generations. It's a shame you don't have a track changes feature. The revision history would be a fascinating read. Some of the most famous cloaks were passed from chief to chief, each new owner adding their own chapter, their own symbols, until the garment became a complex tapestry of an entire dynasty's history. When the alteration is complete, the cape is transformed. It now tells a new story, a story of the past and the present, of an old lineage and a new alliance. You fold it carefully and give it back to the messenger. This small task has given you a new perspective on Kalani, the great cloak still waiting on its mat. You realize you are not creating an object that will be finished on the day you tie the last knot. You are creating the first draft of a history that may be added to for generations. You are forging an heirloom not just for a chief, but for a kingdom. Its story, you now understand, is only just beginning. After the brief interlude of repair and restoration, you and your daughter return to the Great Cloak, to Kalani. The end is no longer a distant dream on the horizon. It is the shore beneath your feet. With a quiet, unspoken understanding, you work together on the final section, the bottom hem. The movements are so familiar now they require no thought. Your hands and hers move with the steady, patient grace of water flowing over stone. And then it happens. Your daughter ties a knot on her side. You tie one on yours. You look at each other. There are no more empty meshes. It is finished. A profound silence fills the workshop. For the first time in decades, the constant whisper, soft rustle of feathers and the whisk of the olonā thread is gone. You're not sure what to do with your hands. It's the awkward, slightly empty feeling that comes after a long and all-consuming task is done, like finishing a story you've been reading for 30 years. You both stand up and carefully spread the cloak out one last time on the clean mats. It fills the entire hut. It is an ocean of color, a landscape of power. The crimson fields are as deep and uniform as cooled lava, and the yellow crescents and triangles blaze like the sun itself. It is more beautiful, more powerful, than the vision you had in your mind all those years ago. The day of the presentation is a momentous occasion. Word has spread through the ʻahu, and the entire community gathers. The cloak is too heavy and too sacred for one person to carry. It is carefully folded, laid upon a wooden litter, and covered with a pristine sheet of white kapa. 4 strong warriors, the chief's own retainers, lift the litter to their shoulders. You and your daughter walk behind it, a place of high honor. It's a bit of a shame, really. The cloak is so heavy you're pretty sure the chief is going to need to do some serious strength training if he wants to wear it for more than 5 minutes. It's the original weighted blanket, but with a lot more political significance. The procession moves slowly through the village to the chief's central compound. The crowd parts, their faces a mixture of awe and reverence. They have all contributed to this moment, through food, through labor, through prayers. This is their cloak as much as it is the chief's. You arrive at the large, open-sided ceremonial house. The chief is waiting, seated on a raised platform of mats. He is an old man now, his own hair streaked with gray. The boy who dreamed of a cloak to secure his reign is now a grandfather whose reign is secure. The warriors place the litter before him. You and your daughter step forward. Together you pull back the kapa cover. A collective gasp rises from the assembled crowd. The colors seen in the full light of day are overwhelming. They seem to absorb the sunlight and radiate it back, glowing with an inner fire. At the chief's nod, you and your daughter lift the cloak. You feel its immense weight, the physical embodiment of a generation of labor. You approach the chief, who has now risen to his feet. With the help of his attendants, you drape ʻahu over his shoulders. The moment it settles, you can see a change. The physical weight is immense, and you see him brace himself under the load. But there is another weight, the weight of its mana. It is believed that a new cloak has a wild, untamed power, and that a chief must be spiritually strong enough to master it, lest it master him. The chief stands taller, his shoulders squared, and you can feel the cloak's power settle, accepting its new master. The debate among scholars about the relationship between artisan and patron feels moot in this moment. You feel an unbreakable bond, a certainty that your life's work is now fused with his destiny. He turns slowly, and the feathers shift and catch the light, creating a liquid, shimmering effect. He seems more than human, a being cloaked in the sacred elements of the islands, the fire of the volcano, the gold of the sun. You half expect him to start asking his attendants, "Does this cloak make my mana look big?" The answer, written on the awestruck faces of his people, is a clear and definitive yes. Your work is done. Your vision is complete. The mantle of power now rests where it belongs. Your life's work is no longer yours. It now belongs to the chief, to the kingdom, to history. In the years that follow the great presentation, you see ʻahu only on the most important occasions from a respectful distance. Each time you see it, it takes your breath away. You are no longer its creator, but a witness to the life it has taken on. And what a life it is. The cloak proves to be the ultimate multi-tool of royal attire. It's a battle standard, a diplomatic passport, a sacred vestment, and probably very comfortable on a cool night. It's the Swiss Army knife of divine fashion. You see it in its most terrifying and magnificent role, as an emblem of war. The conflict that the chief foresaw all those decades ago finally arrives. On the morning of the battle, he emerges from his compound, and the sight of him silences the entire village. He is wearing the cloak. The deep crimson seems to drink the morning light, and the golden patterns blaze. It is not armor in a practical sense, but it is a shield of a different kind. As he walks among his warriors, his presence is magnified tenfold. He is no longer just a man. He is a living symbol of the war god Ku, a walking promise of divine favor. Seeing your chief like this on the battlefield must have been an awesome, terrifying sight for the enemy. It's hard to maintain your battle focus when the opposing general looks like a fabulous walking sunset, who is also a personal friend of the god of war. You hear the stories that come back from the fighting. The enemy warriors hesitated, their spears faltering at the sight of the magnificent garment. Historians still debate the rules of engagement on the battlefield. Was it a grave taboo to strike a chief's sacred cloak, or was capturing it the ultimate prize, a way of stealing his mana? From the stories you hear, it seems the sight of it was enough to cause a moment's hesitation, and in battle, a moment is all that is needed. The cloak, and the chief within it, emerge from the victorious battle untouched. But its life is not only one of conflict. You also see it in its role as a tool of diplomacy. A great double-hulled canoe arrives carrying a chief from another island for tense negotiations over fishing rights. When your chief goes to meet him, he wears ʻahu. The visiting chief and his retainers are wearing their own fine garments, but your chief's cloak, with its sheer scale and the unbearable preciousness of its mamo feathers, is a statement of unparalleled power. It's the ancient equivalent of showing up to a business meeting in a demonstrably nicer chariot. The cloak's patterns are read and understood. Its silent message of deep lineage, immense wealth, and vast resources is more powerful than any spoken threat or promise. A favorable treaty is signed, and you see it in its most sacred function. During the Makahiki, the annual season of peace and harvest dedicated to the god Lono, the chief leads the great processions. Here, the cloak is not a symbol of war or earthly power, but a holy vestment. It connects him to the divine, marking him as the intermediary through whom the god's blessings of fertility and prosperity flow to the land and the people. Its mana is a conduit for peace. The fame of Kaeaokalani spreads. When the first pale-skinned explorers arrive on their ships, the magnificent cloak is one of the treasures they are shown, an undeniable symbol of the kingdom's power. It is an object of such potency that it transcends language, communicating its value to all who see it. You watch all of this from the quiet perspective of old age, your heart swelling with a deep, calm pride. The vision you had as a young artisan has been made real, and it is doing its work. You even find yourself thinking about its final duty. There are stories of the most sacred cloaks being used one last time to wrap the bones of the chief after his death, protecting his spirit as it journeyed into the next world. You know that one day this will be the cloak's fate. It will be a vessel of power in life, in war, in peace, and ultimately, in death. The mantle you wove is truly the weight of a kingdom. Your time as a weaver, as a mother, as a woman of your people, comes to a gentle close. You pass into the realm of ancestors, your body returned to the sacred earth. But a part of you, a thread of your spirit, remains intertwined with the mana of your greatest creation. You become its silent, unseen guardian, and you bear witness to the great, bewildering changes that sweep over your islands. You watch as the old ways crumble. The great kapu system that governed every moment of your life is overthrown in a single revolutionary act. Temples are dismantled, and new gods arrive on the tall ships, gods with different rules and different promises. Diseases you never knew existed sweep through the villages, silencing the laughter of children and the songs of the elders. The world you knew, the world that dreamed Kaeaokalani into being, is vanishing like mist in the morning sun. Yet, the cloak survives. It is passed down through the new line of kings who now rule a unified kingdom. It is worn now with Western-style military uniforms and European silks, a stunning, vibrant symbol of an ancient lineage persisting in a modernizing world. It is present at state functions, at the signing of treaties with foreign powers, a silent declaration of Hawaiian sovereignty in an era of encroaching empires. And then comes the day of its great journey. It does not happen with the ceremony of its creation, but in a quiet, somber transaction. Perhaps it is given as a magnificent gift to a visiting European royal, a gesture of goodwill between two distant monarchies. Or perhaps, after the eventual tragic overthrow of your kingdom in 1893, a descendant sells it to a collector from a faraway land to survive a world that no longer values the old treasures. Whatever the reason, you watch as it is folded, packed into a dark wooden crate and carried onto a massive steamship. You witness its final departure, a flash of imprisoned color leaving the shores of its birth, perhaps forever. Your spirit travels with it across the vast cold ocean to a new world, a world of gray skies, of stone cities, of people who rush and do not see the omens in the sky. The cloak is carefully unpacked and finds its new home. It is no longer a sacred vessel of power. It is an artifact, an object of study. The cloak has officially retired from its job of protecting kings. Its new, less stressful role is being extremely old and beautiful behind a sheet of glass. The benefits are great, but the hours are a bit dull. It is mounted in a climate-controlled case, a perfect, silent jewel under artificial lights, and you watch as generations of strangers shuffle past. They stop and stare, their faces reflecting in the glass. They read the small placard beside it. The sign tries its best using words like ceremonial and high status and extinct birds. It's like trying to describe the sun by only using the word yellow. It's a nice try, but it misses the point by about 93 million miles. They see the beauty, but they cannot feel the weight. They admire the craftsmanship, but they cannot hear the chants woven into its foundation. One day, a young woman with dark, familiar eyes and skin the color of warm sand stands before the case. She is a descendant of your people, a visitor in this foreign land. She closes her eyes and hums a soft, low melody. It is the old weaver's chant, the one your grandmother taught you. And for a moment, a flicker of the old mana stirs in the silent feathers. The debate now in this modern world is about repatriation, about whether these captured treasures should be sent home. You watch the quiet arguments, the passionate discussions. It's like distant relatives arguing over a beloved grandparent's future. Everyone means well, but perhaps they have forgotten to ask the ancestor what they truly want. You, its guardian spirit, remain, watching over this sleeping giant. And you wonder, with a patience that spans eternity, if Ka'eaukalani will ever feel the true Hawaiian sun on its feathers again. And so, the story of the great cloak comes to a gentle rest, safely preserved, but a world away from the misty mountain forests and the warm Pacific shore that gave it life. The tiny perfect knots you tied so long ago still hold firm, a quiet testament to a time of gods and chiefs, of sacred birds, and of a people whose artistry created a beauty that could outlast their own world. The vibrant colors, born of sunlight and nectar and endless patience, now sleep behind glass, waiting for the day they might be called to serve their people once more. The air in the museum is still and quiet, the distant footsteps of the last visitors fading into silence. The lights dim, leaving the cloak in a soft, protective twilight, its golden crescents and crimson fields resting in the peaceful dark. The story is finished, the great labor is done, and all that remains is a deep and profound quiet. Let the image of that shimmering, sleeping treasure soothe your mind, a symbol of enduring beauty and the quiet strength of things made with love and intention. Let your own thoughts begin to soften and drift, releasing the focus of the day, and allow yourself to settle into the stillness of the night, into the deep and gentle comfort of your own well-deserved rest. Sweet dreams.